Hey there, ladies. Welcome to this episode where I'm taking you along on a wild, wonderful ride. My journey of learning to dance at 42 and how it turned my life upside down in the best way possible. Imagine this. A busy mom, a career woman, someone who thought her dancing days were a distant memory, stepping onto a dance floor and finding herself again. This story is for you, whether you're juggling kids, work, or just trying to figure out who you are in the middle of life's chaos. So, grab your coffee, your wine, or whatever's keeping you going today and let's dive in. I've split this into 6 chapters so you can listen bit by bit, and at the end of each one, I'll toss out a question or some advice to get you thinking about your own life. Ready? Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Decision. It all kicked off on a chilly Saturday night in October, at my friend Sarah's 40th birthday party. The venue was this adorable little community hall downtown, the kind with creaky floors and a faint smell of old wood and wax polish. Sarah had gone all out. Twinkling fairy lights crisscrossed the ceiling like a starry sky, and bright streamers in hot pink, turquoise, and gold dangled from the walls, fluttering every time someone opened the door. Long tables lined one side of the room, piled with comfort food, trays of roasted chicken with crispy golden skin, bowls of garlic mashed potatoes that smelled like heaven, and a towering chocolate cake with thick frosting that begged to be sliced into. I could hear the clink of glasses and the hum of chatter over the music. A playlist straight out of our college days. Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You" filled the air when I walked in, followed by the Spice Girls' "Wannabe," and the nostalgia hit me like a warm wave. I'd thrown on my go-to outfit, a soft black sweater, dark jeans, and ankle boots. Nothing flashy, just cozy and safe. I grabbed a glass of Chardonnay from the bar, a little liquid courage, and found a spot at a round table near the back where I could watch the party unfold. The dance floor was already buzzing. Sarah was out there, glowing in a red dress that hugged her curves and flared out when she spun, twirling with her husband Tom. They moved together like they'd been practicing for years, all easy smiles and effortless grace, like a scene from one of those cheesy romance movies I secretly love. Couples swayed, friends laughed, and a few brave souls attempted some goofy moves that had everyone cheering. Me. I was glued to my chair, sipping my wine, tapping my foot under the table. I've always loved parties. The energy, the stories, the chance to catch up with friends over a plate of food. But dancing? That's where I've drawn a hard line for years. It's not that I hate it, it's that I'm terrified of it. I've got this memory from middle school gym class that still haunts me like a bad dream. We were doing square dancing. Yes, square dancing, complete with fiddles and a teacher yelling, "Swing your partner." And I was paired with Tommy Jenkins, the class clown with floppy hair and a gap-toothed grin. I was supposed to do as I do or promenade or something, but instead I tripped over my own sneakers and face-planted right in front of the whole class. The room erupted in laughter and Tommy, to his credit, hauled me up with a "You okay, klutz?" But the damage was done. I was the clumsy kid, the one who couldn't keep up, and that label stuck like gum on a shoe. Over the years, I'd perfected the art of the sidelines, tapping my foot, swaying a little, maybe clapping along, but never ever stepping out there. That night, though, something cracked open inside me. Watching Sarah spin and laugh, her face lit up with this pure, unfiltered joy, I felt an ache deep in my chest, like I was missing out on something vital, something I couldn't name but desperately wanted. I'm 42, a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company, mom to 2 teenagers, Jake, 16, who lives for soccer and eats us out of house and home, and Emily, 14, who's all about drama club and scrolling TikTok, and wife to Mike, who's been my rock through 18 years of marriage, patiently navigating my late-night work emails and endless to-do lists. My life was full, overflowing even, but it was all about everyone else. Work deadlines loomed, soccer practices dictated my weekends, drama rehearsals meant late pickups, and the fridge needed constant restocking with snacks those kids inhaled like air. Where was me in all that chaos? When was the last time I did something just for myself? Something that wasn't about being responsible or keeping the wheels turning. I used to be different. I flashed back to being 10, spinning barefoot in our backyard to my dad's old vinyl records. Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, anything with a beat. The grass was cool under my feet, the sun warm on my face, and I'd twirl until I was dizzy, laughing as I collapsed in a heap. I was free then, fearless, the girl who'd try anything once, climbing trees, belting out off-key songs, dancing like no one was watching because no one was. But somewhere between college, career, marriage, and motherhood, I'd lost her. I'd become the planner, the fixer, the one who made sure everyone else was okay while I stayed safely in the background. And that night, watching Sarah and Tom sway to Unchained Melody, I realized I didn't want to be background noise in my own life anymore. I wanted to move, to feel that freedom again. I wanted to dance, not just shuffle awkwardly at a wedding after too much champagne, but really dance. The DJ transitioned to another slow song, and more couples drifted onto the floor. Sarah and Tom were pressed close, foreheads touching, lost in their own world, and that ache in my chest grew sharper. Not just for the romance, though that tugged at me too, but for the abandon they had out there, the way they weren't afraid to be seen. I pulled out my phone right there at the table, my fingers trembling a little as I typed "dance classes near me" into Google. Up popped a studio just 3 miles from my house, offering a 6-week ballroom course for beginners starting that Tuesday. My heart thudded against my ribs. Was I actually considering this? Me, the woman who'd avoided dance floors like they were lava? Maybe I was crazy, but something, maybe the wine, maybe the music, pushed me past the doubt. Before I could overthink it, I clicked register, filled out the form with shaky thumbs, and hit submit. A confirmation email pinged into my inbox, and I stared at it, a mix of terror and excitement bubbling up like I'd just signed up for a roller coaster I wasn't sure I could handle. Driving home that night with Jake and Emily chattering in the backseat about the party, Jake raving about the cake, Emily giggling over some dance move Tom had botched, and Mike humming along to the radio, I kept replaying that moment in my head. I hadn't danced since I was a kid, and even then I was more likely to play a tree in the school play than a ballerina. My last real dance memory was that middle school disaster, and here I was 30 years later jumping back in. But something told me this was my shot. Not just to dance, but to rediscover that spark I'd buried under carpools and conference calls, to find that girl who used to spin in the backyard without a care in the world. Question for you: have you ever felt like you've lost a piece of yourself in the daily grind? Maybe a hobby, a dream, a little slice of joy? What's one thing you'd do to bring it back, even just for a moment? Chapter 2: First Steps. The first class was Tuesday night at 7 p.m., and I spent way too long agonizing over what to wear. I tried on 3 outfits before landing on black leggings and a flowy teal top. Practical but with a touch of flair, like I was pretending I belonged even though my stomach was a knot of nerves. I grabbed my water bottle, kissed Mike and the kids goodbye. Jake barely looked up from his Xbox, Emily waved from her phone, and drove to the studio, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. The place was tucked into a strip mall between a coffee shop and a dry cleaner, but inside, it was a different world. The room was bright and airy, with huge floor-to-ceiling mirrors covering one wall and a polished wooden floor that squeaked faintly under my sneakers. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching dust motes in the air, and the faint scent of lemon cleaner mixed with a whiff of sweat. A weirdly comforting combo that said people worked hard here. About a dozen other students were already there, stretching or chatting, looking way more at ease than I felt. My palms were sweaty and my heart was doing this annoying little tap dance of its own. Our instructor, Elena, breezed in a few minutes later, and she was a vision, tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with a warm smile and a slight Eastern European accent that made everything she said sound like poetry. She wore a flowy skirt that swirled around her ankles and a glittery top that caught the light, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun. "Welcome everyone," she said, clapping her hands. "No worries if you've never danced before, we all start somewhere." I clung to those words like a lifeline as we lined up, and she kicked things off with the waltz box step. Forward, side, together, back, side, together. Simple, right? Except my feet had other ideas. I stepped on myself, bumped into the woman next to me, and muttered a quick, "Sorry." She grinned, her curly hair bouncing as she said, "Me too, I'm a total mess." Her name was Mia, a 38-year-old paralegal with a laugh that instantly put me at ease, and we bonded over our shared clumsiness like 2 kids tripping through a playground. The class was a chaotic blur of stumbles and giggles. Elena floated around the room, adjusting arms, counting beats, 1 2 3 1 2 3, her patience endless as we flailed. I tried not to look at myself in the mirrors, but it was impossible to avoid. There I was, stiff as a board, my shoulders hunched, while others seemed to glide like they'd been born doing this. Halfway through, Elena turned on some music. A soft, lilting waltz that sounded like it belonged in a Jane Austen movie, and for a split second I stopped overthinking. My body moved with the rhythm and I felt this tiny spark of joy like that kid spinning in the backyard again. It was gone as fast as it came, but it was enough to hook me. Over the next few weeks I kept showing up, nerves and all. Some nights I'd nail a step and feel like I could conquer the world. Others I'd trip over my own feet and wonder why I hadn't stayed home with Netflix. Mia and I became fast friends, swapping eye rolls and encouragements as we fumbled through the basics. Then came the night Elena paired us with partners. Mine was David, a tall guy with kind hazel eyes and a beginner's rhythm that somehow clicked with mine. He was maybe early 50s with salt and pepper hair and a quiet confidence, and he'd signed up because his wife thought it'd be good for him. We waltzed together and, miracle of miracles, we glided. Not perfectly, but smoothly enough that I forgot about the inbox waiting for me at home or the laundry pile growing like a monster in the basement. When the song ended, David grinned and said, "That was great." I couldn't stop smiling, this goofy ear-to-ear grin that felt foreign on my face. For the first time I thought maybe, just maybe, I could actually do this. It wasn't all magic though. There were nights I'd leave the studio frustrated, my brain replaying every mistake like a highlight reel of failure. I'd sit in my car staring at the steering wheel, the cold night air seeping through the windows, wondering if I was wasting my time. Was I too old for this? Too out of shape? Too late to start? But then I'd think about that moment with David, that fleeting grace, and I'd take a deep breath and promise myself I'd try again next week. Elena's voice echoed in my head. We all start somewhere. And somewhere, it turned out, was exactly where I needed to be. Question for you. When was the last time you tried something totally new? Maybe a hobby, a recipe, a bold move? How did it feel? Scary, thrilling, a little of both. Chapter 3: The Challenges. Dancing became my escape, my little pocket of joy in a life that felt like a treadmill set to chaos. But it wasn't all twirls and triumphs. There were plenty of stumbles, literal and otherwise. Physically, it was brutal. At 42, my body wasn't the bendy, bouncy thing it was at 20. My knees creaked like an old rocking chair, my back ached after every class, and I'd hobble home feeling like I'd run a marathon in flip-flops. I'd wake up the next morning with sore muscles in places I didn't even know existed, calves screaming, shoulders tight, even my toes protesting every step. I'd pop ibuprofen like candy, soak in Epsom salt baths, and pray the kids wouldn't ask me to chase them around the yard. Mentally, it was even tougher. Those studio mirrors were relentless, showing me every misstep, every awkward angle. I'd watch other students, some younger, some just naturals, pick up the steps like they'd been born with a dance manual in hand, while I floundered like a fish on dry land. Why can't I get this? I'd mutter under my breath, frustration bubbling up until it felt like I might boil over. One night, we tackled a foxtrot turn that might as well have been quantum physics. Elena demonstrated all elegance and ease, her feet gliding as she said, "Slow, quick, quick, slow." Simple, right? Not for me. My version was a disaster. I kept spinning the wrong way, my feet tangling like they were plotting against me. After the fifth botched attempt, I felt hot tears prickling behind my eyes. I excused myself, mumbled something about needing water, and ducked into the bathroom. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my flushed reflection. What am I doing here? I whispered, my voice echoing off the tiles. The doubt was deafening. Maybe I was too old, too clumsy, too late to start something like this. But then I thought about Sarah's party, that ache to feel alive again, that moment I'd hit register, and promised myself I'd try. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who'd climb back on her bike after a fall, scraped knees and all. Quitting wasn't who I was, or who I wanted to be. I dried my face with a scratchy paper towel, took a shaky breath and marched back to class, determined to keep going even if I looked like a fool doing it. Time was another beast. Fitting dance into my life was like solving a puzzle with missing pieces. Work was a whirlwind of meetings and deadlines, the kids had their own orbits, Jake's soccer games, Emily's late-night rehearsals, and the house didn't clean itself. I'd practice in the kitchen while stirring pasta, counting 1, 2, 3 as I waltzed around the island, or sneak in a few steps in the living room during commercial breaks. Mike caught me once, grinning as he said, "You're gonna trip over the dog." He'd join me sometimes, twirling me with his goofy, offbeat charm, even though he's got the rhythm of a broken metronome. The kids rolled their eyes. Teenagers, right? But I caught Emily smiling once, filming me on her phone like she was secretly proud. Dancing dug up old baggage too, stuff I thought I'd packed away years ago. Post-kids, my body wasn't what it used to be. 2 pregnancies had left me softer, rounder, with stretch marks mapping my hips like a road atlas. Those mirrors didn't lie, and I'd wince at the extra pounds, the way my arms jiggled when I raced them in a waltz frame. I'd spent years hiding under baggy sweaters, avoiding anything that clung too tight, but dance demanded I face it all. At first it stung, every glance felt like a judgment. But slowly I started shifting the lens. I'd catch myself holding a frame for a whole song, executing a turn without toppling, feeling the music pulse through me. My body wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and it was doing something incredible. That mattered more than any dress size. The real test came one rainy night when I almost threw in the towel. We were working on a cha-cha step, side back cha-cha, and I couldn't get the hip swivel right. Elena kept saying, "Loose hips, feel the beat," but my hips were apparently on strike. I felt like a robot, clunky and out of sync, while Mia nailed it across the room, her curls bouncing as she laughed. I was drenched in sweat, my leggings sticking to my thighs, and all I wanted was to go home and crawl under a blanket. After class, Elena pulled me aside, her eyes soft but steady. "You're working so hard," she said, her accent wrapping the words in warmth. "It's showing. Don't be so tough on yourself." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, and thanked her kindness like a lifeline pulling me back from the edge. That night I went home, slipped into my pajamas, and practiced the cha-cha in the hallway barefoot and stubborn until I got it, just once but enough. Question for you. What's a challenge you faced chasing a dream, big or small? How did you push through, or what could help you take that next step? Chapter 4: The Breakthrough. 3 months in, something clicked. Not one big Hollywood moment, but a slow build of little wins that added up to something real. The box step I'd butchered in week 1? Suddenly smooth, like my feet finally knew where to go. The waltz rhythm I couldn't hear over my own panic? Now second nature, humming in my bones. One night, Elena dimmed the studio lights, leaving just the fairy lights twinkling along the walls, and had us dance to a slow waltz, some classical piece with violins that felt like a hug. I closed my eyes, let David lead, and just felt it. The music wrapping around me, the gentle pull of his hand, the way my steps matched his without me forcing it. When the song faded, Elena's voice cut through the quiet. "That was beautiful." I opened my eyes, blinking back tears, and David squeezed my hand with a quiet, "Nice one." I nearly lost it right there. Then came the studio's showcase. A low-key event with folding chairs, a potluck table, and a crowd of friends and family, but to me it was the Super Bowl. David and I signed up for a waltz routine, and we practiced like our lives depended on it. Every Tuesday and Thursday, plus stolen moments in my living room when the kids were at school. We picked a song, Moon River, because it was slow and dreamy, and Elena helped us choreograph a simple routine. Box steps, a turn, a dip at the end if we were feeling brave. I'd lie awake at night, running the steps in my head, my heart racing at the thought of messing up in front of everyone. The day of the showcase I was a wreck. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I zipped up my dress. A flowy black number with a subtle shimmer, nothing too fancy but enough to feel special. Mike drove us to the studio, the kids in tow, and I could barely talk, my stomach a tangle of knots. The room was packed, maybe 50 people chatting over plates of brownies and veggie trays, the air buzzing with excitement. When our turn came, Elena called our names and David and I stepped onto the floor, the lights bright and the crowd hushed. The first notes of Moon River floated out and I froze for a split second, my breath catching. Then David whispered, "You've got this," and we started. We danced, not flawlessly, I'll admit. I wobbled on the turn and the dip was more of a lean, but confidently, like we belonged there. The room faded away and it was just us, the music and the rhythm we'd built together. When the last note played, the applause snapped me back, loud and warm, and I looked out to see Emily, teary-eyed, yelling, "Mom, you were amazing." Jake hooped, Mike grinned like a proud dad at a recital, and I felt this rush, like I'd just climbed a mountain and planted a flag. That night, lying in bed with Mike snoring softly beside me, I replayed it all. The lights, the music, the feeling of my feet finding their place. Dancing wasn't just about steps anymore. It was about trusting myself, proving I could still surprise myself after years of playing it safe. I'd found my groove, and it felt like coming home to a house I'd forgotten I owned. The showcase wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a door swinging open to a version of me I hadn't known was waiting. Question for you. Think of a time you shocked yourself by pulling off something big. A project, a leap, a moment you didn't think you had in you. What did it teach you about what you're capable of? Chapter 5. The Transformation. Dancing didn't stop at the studio. It spilled into every corner of my life like paint splashing off a canvas. I stood taller, my shoulders back instead of hunched over a laptop. At work, I spoke up in meetings with a voice I hadn't used in years, pitching ideas with a boldness that surprised even me. My boss noticed, pulling me aside after a presentation to say, "You're on fire lately. What's your secret?" I just smiled and said, "Oh, finding my rhythm." It wasn't a lie. I even signed up for a painting class I'd eyed for years, dragging Mia along, and we spent Saturday mornings laughing over our lumpy landscapes, rediscovering creativity I'd shelved since high school. Home got a glow up too. Mike and I started date nights again, real ones, not just takeout on the couch. We'd hit dance socials at the studio, fumbling through swing or salsa, laughing when he stepped on my toes or I spun into him like a bumper car. It was like we'd rediscovered each other, peeling back the layers of routine to find the couple who used to flirt over cheap beer in college. The kids caught the vibe. Jake picked up guitar, strumming chords in his room until my ears begged for mercy, and Emily auditioned for the school musical, landing a solo that had her beaming. They'd tease me about my dance phase, but I saw the spark in them, like my leap had lit something in theirs. My world got bigger too. Mia and I started grabbing coffee after class, swapping stories about work and kids over steaming lattes, and David's wife, Lisa, invited us over for dinner one night. Pasta and wine in their cozy kitchen, the four of us laughing like old friends. I'd spent so long in my bubble, work, home, repeat, that I'd forgotten how much I needed people, how good it felt to connect. Dancing cracked that shell open, letting light and laughter back in. The biggest shift was inside. I'd spent years being mom, wife, worker, roles I loved, but ones that had swallowed me whole. I'd forgotten I was me too. A woman who could dream, who could do, who didn't have to have it all figured out. Dancing gave me that back. It showed up in small ways. I'd catch myself humming in the grocery store, swaying to the music like no one was watching, or I'd say yes to things I'd have brushed off before. A last-minute girls' night, a hike with Mike, a silly TikTok dance with Emily that left us in stitches. I kept dancing too, tried salsa with its spicy hips, bombed a swing competition but had a blast and made the studio my happy place. It wasn't just a hobby, it was my reminder to live, not just exist, to chase joy instead of letting it pass me by. One day, standing in my kitchen stirring soup, I realized I wasn't the same woman who'd sat at Sarah's party, aching for something more. I'd found it, not perfection, not some grand prize, but a piece of myself I'd lost. And that, ladies, was worth every sore muscle, every stumble, every doubt I'd pushed through. Question for you. How has chasing a passion, any passion, rippled into your life? Your relationships, your confidence, your everyday joy. What's different because you said yes to it? Chapter 6. Reflection and Advice. Looking back, I'm so grateful for that night at Sarah's party, that split-second decision that changed everything. What started as a wild, wine-fueled idea became my lifeline, my wake-up call, my second chance. Learning to dance at 42 taught me it's never too late. To start over, to be brave, to find yourself again when you thought you were too far gone. I was terrified, clumsy, and so unsure, but I grew into someone stronger, happier, more me than I'd been in years. It wasn't about becoming a pro dancer or wowing a crowd. It was about showing up for myself, about proving that the girl who spun in the backyard still lived inside me, waiting for a beat to move to. Here's what I've learned, and I'm passing it to you because I know you've got your own dreams rattling around in there. First, don't wait for the perfect time. It doesn't exist. Life's messy, schedules are packed, and there'll always be a reason to say no. I signed up for that class with a sink full of dishes and a report due, and I'm so glad I didn't let that stop me. Second, it's okay to be bad at it, whatever it is for you. I was a hot mess those first weeks, stepping on toes and forgetting steps, but that's where the growth happens, in the messy middle. Third, find your people. Mia's laughs, David's steady hand, Elena's quiet encouragement. They kept me going when I wanted to quit. And finally, celebrate the small stuff. The first time I nailed a turn, I treated myself to ice cream like I'd won an Oscar. Those little wins build you up. Want some practical tips? Here's my playbook. Start small. Find a class, a YouTube tutorial, a friend who's done it before, whatever gets you moving. Set a tiny goal. Say, I'll try this once a week for a month. And stick to it. Tell someone about it so they can cheer you on, or nag you when you slack. And when the doubt creeps in, and it will, remind yourself why you started. For me, it was that ache at Sarah's party, that longing to feel alive. What's yours? I think about other women out there like you and I imagine your stories. Maybe there's a Lisa who picked up knitting at 40 and now makes blankets that warm her whole neighborhood. Or a Jen who started running at 45 and crossed a finish line with her kids cheering. Those leaps, big or small, light us up and they ripple out to everyone around us. So what's your thing? That dream you've shelved, that itch you've ignored? What's holding you back? Fear, time, that voice saying, not now? And how can you take one step toward it today? Maybe a Google search, a text to a friend, a promise to yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Drop me a message, share with a pal, let's keep this going. Because here's the truth, ladies. We're not done yet. Not at 35, not at 45, not ever. There's still music out there waiting for us to dance to it. Final question. What's one thing you've always wanted to learn or do? Something just for you? What's your next move to make it happen? And that's my story, from the sidelines to the dance floor, from lost to found at 42. Thanks for coming along, and I hope it sparks something in you. A laugh, a tear, a little nudge to try. Until next time, keep moving, keep dreaming, and keep being your amazing selves. If this story resonated with you, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend who might need a little inspiration. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell me about a time you took a leap and surprised yourself. Let's keep this conversation going.